Hi there, and welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and today I've got a story for you. What do you know about this woman, Clara Barton? Well, in 1864, during the height of the American Civil War, Clara, the founder of the American Red Cross, faced a situation that tested the depths of human grace. She was asked to nurse soldiers who had not only fought against her cause, but had committed grievous acts of violence. Despite public outrage, this is what she had to say. You have to heal the wounds of the enemy to find true peace. Now, this story highlights an extraordinary truth that love that goes beyond obligations transforms both the giver and the recipient. It's not always easy, but it is necessary. In today's episode, Q1E2, the Covenantal Love, we will be exploring this divine principle, God's relentless love for humanity, even in our unworthiness, and how He invites us to not only accept His love, but like Clara, extend the same to others. Are you ready? Let's dive right in. Okay, so last week we reflected on a profound truth. The God chose to pay the wages of sin Himself rather than just hit the cosmic reset button. Think about it. Why would God opt for the more painful, humiliating, and costly path when easier options were available? The answer lies in God's relentless, unyielding love for His creation. Beyond vindicating His character against the adversary's accusations, God's mission was and still is driven by an unwavering desire to reconcile us to Himself. John sums it up beautifully when he says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life." John 3:16. Unless we think He came to condemn, verse 17 makes it clear. For God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might through Him be saved. Point is, if it were solely up to God alone, everybody will be saved. He has already paid the price for sin and extended salvation freely to all. However, the text says, "Whosoever believes will not perish," meaning it is not forced. We can either accept His offer of reconciliation through Jesus or not. It's a choice. God will not force allegiance or compel worship. True love must be freely given and freely received. Some have accepted this offer. Hopefully, we belong to this group. Unfortunately, others have rejected it. And as much as it hurts God, God respects our choices. But here is the intriguing part. Regardless of what we choose, it does not make us less the work of His hands, and by default, the object of His love. Jeremiah puts it this way: "I have loved you with an everlasting love, and with loving kindness have I drawn you." Jeremiah 31 verse 3. The point is, God does not love me any less because I made some bad choices. On the contrary, motivated by love, in His foreknowledge of where those choices will lead, He desires to course correct me today in order to avert the undesirable wages of sin. This principle made more sense to me when I became a parent. You never stop loving your child, regardless. You are probably thinking right now, does this also include some very mean people who have done some very despicable things to people, like the soldiers that Clara treated? Answer: if they are the work of his hands, then yes. But let's be clear, love does not excuse or erase accountability, even though that's God's prerogative. Now, while God does not condone their excesses, God loves them too unconditionally, like everyone else. But to enter into a saving relationship with God, we have to actively participate. Question is how? That's a good question, and this is how. 1. By accepting God's offer of reconciliation through Jesus. For there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved but the name of Jesus. Acts 4:12. Number 2, by reciprocating the love of God through A, obedience. Jesus puts it this way: he who has my commandments and keeps them, it is he who loves me. In other words, don't just say it, show it. Now let's take this a step further. For those who accept God's offer and enter into a covenant relationship with Him, there are certain exceptional privileges that God makes available to them. For instance, salvation. Deuteronomy 7 verse 9 captures this beautifully. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. While God's love for everyone remains unconditional, the blessings of a covenant relationship, his presence, and all that comes with that are contingent on upholding the terms of that covenant. Question is, what does it take to keep this covenant? In very simple terms, number 1, accept his terms of engagement. And number 2, obey his commandments. This principle is illustrated in the parable of the wedding banquet. The king invited all to his son's banquet, but specified a condition: the wedding garment. Remaining at the feast required accepting the invitation and conforming to the king's terms by wearing the garment. Jesus summarized it perfectly. If you love me, keep my commandments. John 14:15. Love for God is not just a feeling, it is reflected in our actions. Our love for Jesus and others demonstrated through obedience to his teachings, to find in Matthew 22, verse 37 to 39. The bottom line is this: enjoying the benefits of a relationship with God hinges on a choice: accepting his love through obedience or rejecting it. Here's the core principle: there are certain levels of intimacy with God and the privileges that come with that only come with absolute submission and obedience to God. This is not just theoretical. We see this in the lives of the patriarchs, in even Israel's journey from Egypt to Canaan. Entering this covenantal relationship today is possible, but conditional. We must actively choose to participate. One other way of reciprocating the love of God through active participation is by becoming avenues of extension of the same privileges to other people, especially the least deserving. Jesus further elaborates on this in the parable of the unforgiving servant. Let's call him TJ. You'll find this story in Matthew 18:23 to 35. So here is a setup. TJ owed his master a debt of 10,000 talents. Let's break that down. One talent then was equivalent to 6,000 denarii, and one denarius was equal to a day's wage. With about 300 workday a year, TJ's annual income was about 300 denarii, meaning it would have taken him about 200,000 years to pay off his debt. Even Methuselah did not live that long. In short, it was not possible for him to pay off his debt. Yet, in an extraordinary act of mercy, his master forgave him. Now, here is the twist. TJ had also loaned a fellow servant, let's call him Tim, about 100 denarii. When Tim could not repay his debt to TJ, TJ had him arrested and demanded every penny. Now, word got back to TJ's master, and well, let's just say it did not end well with TJ for not extending some mercy he had received. Bonus. One of the ways of manifesting our acceptance of the privileges God has so graciously offered us is in extending the same privilege to other people, especially when they are undeserving, like that your very annoying neighbor or colleague. Jesus puts it this way: freely we have received, freely we must give. It is not a suggestion, it is a command. It is important to remember here that TJ, the unforgiving servant, lost the mercy, the love, and the forgiveness of his master because he would not let go of a debt, a grudge, or an offense. Sound familiar? Do you by chance have any carried over unforgiveness or grievances? Now might be a good time to address them. You don't want to end up like TJ. Please do the needful while you still can. And that's it for this week, folks. Next week, we will be exploring the topic to be pleasing to God. Please keep liking, sharing, and subscribing to get notified as soon as we publish. Thank you so much for joining us today. I remain your super Doodle, doodling out. Until next Sabbath, let's make it make sense.